Hey, everybody, and welcome to Movies You Should Have Watched, Tin Cup Edition from 1996. With me, as always, is my co-host, Scribe. Say hello.
Hello.
Um, we actually kind of have a schedule for you guys this time. The next movie will be Dark Man on Scribe's channel. We're shooting for next week, correct?
Yes, I tentative. Things are always in flux a little bit, but fingers crossed, and I'll definitely let everybody know by midweek at the worst.
Okay, so keep an eye on that, guys. But for today, we have one of my favorite movies, Tin Cup. And I didn't know this until today. One of the reasons I love this movie has always been the dialogue in it. This movie is written by the same guy who wrote Bull Durham and White Men Can't Jump.
Yes.
I did not know that until today when I was looking up different things about the movie. And it makes sense because in those two movies, the dialogue is what I like the most. Bull Durham's runs a little long, and White Men Can't Jump. It doesn't have the. It's a little more silly than this one, or even Bull Durham. But they, how do I want to say this? It's very fast dialogue, and there's times you will miss stuff if you're not paying attention. And I just love his name is Ron Shelton, and he used to be a baseball player and likes to write sports movies now, or he did in the 90s. But this movie takes us on a trip with Roy Tin Cup McAvoy, who is a former really good golf player. He was a golf star at the University of Houston, I think it was. But due to his own inability to get out of his own way, he's fallen on hard times.
Yeah, so I'm kind of I had never seen this movie before. I was aware of the film. I remember the previews because as the movie continued, the different moments that they had inserted in the previews, I remembered. It was kind of odd because I wouldn't think it would be ingrained in my brain that well, but they were very familiar. So I came at this completely without any expectations, fresh. I am not classically a romantic comedy guy, so this wasn't exactly a movie that I would have otherwise elected to watch. So Monkey's the big fan. I'm the complete novice to it, so maybe that'll be a good contrast.
You know, I kind of like when we do these. We've done this a couple of times where one of us has seen the movie and the other hasn't.
Yeah.
Because that one person becomes the audience for us. Because in essence, I told you this is a movie you should have watched.
Yes, basically, in this instance. Kind of like running scared. Like I knew the movie, I'd never seen it, that kind of thing.
Well,
so yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, you mentioned romantic comedy, and while that is a large part of this movie, for me, this movie is about Roy's journey, Tin Cup's journey, and something happens in this movie you don't see very often in movies. This character never grows.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to that as we go, but it was a very just in the broad strokes, no golf pun intended, but I'll take it. It had a very confusing message. If there was a message to the movie, it contradicted itself like 3 or 4 different times that I noticed.
I don't think there's a message to this movie. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, well, that can be a nice novelty, but it also can be the detriment of the story. But we'll get there as we go, I'm sure.
Sure, and the movie opens up. Oh shit! It opens up with them doing a bet.
Sorry. Well, before that, so it opens up with this establishing stuff of armadillos running across the road and like Zydeco music playing, and so you can tell we're in the boonies. And honestly, as they open up with the landscape of, I guess, like West Texas or whatever the hell it is, it looks like Fallout 4.
It does.
I mean, you got these broken down cars and these sort of semi-abandoned building looking things and everything else. And I just thought, God, if I didn't already know what this movie was, I'd almost think this was the setting for something like Six String Samurai or a Fallout movie, because it just looks that desolate and broken down.
Yeah, 'cause it does these opening shots where you are seeing just desert Texas.
Hmm.
And that's where his driving range is. Roy is a driving range pro. And yeah, this is a horrible driving range. I mean, there's no lush greens or anything. You're shooting on dirt,
Yeah.
basically. And it sets up. I think it really goes well with his character because he's a dirty dude, and I
Well,
don't mean
it is a landscape full of potential but unused. Let's put it that way. That's kind of symbolizes the character in a way. It's like you could do
yeah.
something with this, but you're just kind of letting it go to seed.
For those of you there, Harbo's just said I've never seen this movie. Meant to, just never got around to it. I love this movie. I've seen a lot of people when we were bringing up that this is what we were going to do, say they didn't want to watch it because it's about golf. This movie's not really about golf.
Yeah,
Uh,
not really.
Golf is a major part of it. It is. But other than a few pieces of the lingo, you don't have to know shit or even like golf to enjoy the movie. But yeah, we see Roy. Roy comes into focus and he walks into this rundown shack of a pro shop. And he's got his buddies in there who had been sitting outside betting on which bugs were going to die in the bug zapper. And he makes a bet with them that he's got a riddle they can't solve. And we see, of the people you see in this shot, the only one who's really important to the rest of the movie is Cheech Marin, who plays Romeo.
Yeah.
But this is the cast of characters he surrounds himself with. These are his buddies, his
And
friends.
except for one other person in that group, I don't think we ever get told outright the names of anyone else except for Romeo and Earl or whatever.
Nope. Well,
they have names. I know they have names, but they're never mentioned in such a way that I even know who these people are or anything about them, except they're just sort of hanging around. And I wanted to say, before we get too deep into it, I just wanted to say that as I watched this, I couldn't help but think that maybe, and I haven't done any research on this movie beyond what I saw in the movie, I couldn't help but think that is this movie sort of like a retelling of some ancient myth or something? Because there's different things about this movie that make me think that it might be based off of some classical thing. Because what I mean by that is the town's name is Salome, which is who's a biblical character. She was a seductress, and there's a whole story behind her. You've got Romeo, the character who's kind of got this. I mean, it's implicated about this Shakespearean sort of much ado about nothing sort of comedy going on. You have the bros that are sort of like the Greek chorus, kind of watching over and making judgments about what he's doing and how he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these, and granted, these could all be just sort of like boilerplate elements that you have in a movie or a story like this. But as things played out, I couldn't help but think that you've got the guy who was once great and now he's fallen on hard times, but he's resurrected by the love of a woman, and that maybe. I don't know if there is, but I couldn't help but think that maybe it's based on something else.
It might be. Now that you've mentioned it in that way, you're right. Because this cast of characters we meet at the very beginning of the movie, they're mostly just there for commentary at various parts throughout the movie.
And exposition.
They're the chorus.
Yeah.
So he makes the bet to him, or the riddle is, there's a car crash with a man and his son. The man dies. The son is rushed to a hospital. He has to have surgery. The surgeon comes in and says, "I can't operate on this child. He's my son."
I hated this. As soon as I heard that, I was like, "Oh, I know where this is going."
Well, also, this riddle has been around for a long time, and it gained popularity in pop culture in the 90s. The first time I heard it, I want to say was on the Cosby Show.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. It was on a television series, but I'd seen it before I'd seen it on here. But this also sets the expectation for who these guys are, because none of them even comes close to the answer. There's actually one point where Earl almost turns it into an incestuous thing, and Roy has to tell him this is a family riddle.
Yeah.
But then in walks Rene Russo, who I'm not sure how she heard the whole thing, but
Yeah.
it,
There's a few sort of like moments in this first little sequence. I'll just say that Renee Russo, she is gorgeous. I don't know what else to tell you, but back then, I haven't seen her recently. I think the last time I saw her was Two for the Money with Al Pacino, and she was she was looking her age a little bit. But back then, man, she was just an absolute stunner.
yeah, and she answers the riddle for him, and she tells Roy that she's here for her lesson, and in a joke on the joke, Roy says, "I thought my appointment was with a Dr. Griswold," and she goes, "I am Dr. Griswold." So he even falls for his own riddle in a sense. So they go out and he starts. This is one of the great parts of this movie. He goes out and he's going to teach her how to play golf. And they start at a driving range, and she's got all of this shit that she says she bought on the Golf Channel. And as she's putting it all on, Roy starts talking to her about the psychology of golf.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a great moment here, and I don't know if you paid attention to this the first time you watched it here, but as he goes out there and he starts giving her this psychology bullshit, and she mentions to him that she's a psychologist, and you just see this look on his face because he's obviously used this bullshit on women before, and suddenly he has this woman that's not going to work with. And then he gives, this is one of the another place where you get the Bull Durham effect of this writer. He gives this really long, impassioned speech about the beauty of hitting a golf shot.
Yeah, and all his friends are behind him, and it's like, oh no, he's doing the poetry thing again.
Yes.
So it's a total rap. Now, the way my mind was working as I watched it was like, she's here for her golf lesson, and I'm like, you're here for a golf lesson at 7 o'clock at night, alone in Texas with a bunch of strangers in the middle of nowhere. I was like, okay.
I can understand. I don't understand it being that dark at 7 o'clock in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's also one of those. There's a lot of things, and I am a nitpicker when it comes to this stuff. And as anybody who's listened to me talk about these movies on these streams before, I can't help but get stuck on some of the finer details of things when it comes to script writing. The 7 p.m. golf lesson in the middle of nowhere with the lady who looks like she belongs in downtown Houston. Mm-hmm. And the I don't know if this is ever explained in the movie. Is it just the wildest of coincidences that she picks this guy to get lessons from, given who she's involved with elsewise, we find out later?
No, it actually involves the next scene, and we can get to that in just a moment.
Sure.
Now, this opening scene, there are a lot of things that if you put too much thought into it, you're gonna be, that makes no.
I know, but this is me. So what can I do?
I am with you. Every time I've watched this, I'm like, why in the fuck are they golfing in the dark?
Yeah.
You can golf in the dark, but you generally use glow in the dark balls, and it's a fun thing you do drunk with friends. I played night golf. It's fun as fuck. Mm-hmm. It's not something you do with strangers you've never met as a single woman alone in the middle of nowhere, Texas. Anyway, so they have their back and forth, and she finally hits the ball, does it really well, and he tells her, we're going to stop there because you stop on a high, which, by the way, is not a bad idea in golf.
Or life.
Or life, yeah, indeed. And so that ends, and
just guess John Belushi. He stopped on a high.
Yes, indeed.
Anyway, bad joke.
The next morning, we see Romeo washing glasses in a blow-up pool outside of a Winnebago. And who drives up but Don Johnson?
Don Johnson.
David Sims in this movie. He is a pro golfer.
Don Johnson driving up and exchanging words with Cheech Marin. And I thought to myself, this was before Nash Bridges, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Okay.
I wonder if this is certain. I wonder if this is where they sort of like got to know each other on the summer. Like, hey, we should do a TV show together.
I think one of the things about this movie is everybody fits together. there's no part of this movie where you're like, that broke it for me because of the characters. The setting maybe, but not the characters. The actors did a great job for me.
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
I have one. There's one major weakness for me in the course of this the narrative of this movie, but we'll get there as we go.
So Don Johnson is looking for Tin Cup, and Romeo lies about where he's at, tells him he's in Houston for the moment, and turns out David is there. He wants Tin Cup to play with, well, it sounds like he wants him to play with him in a tournament that Sims runs. And Sims wants to win this tournament. And Tin Cup pokes his head out and asks him, what's the catch here? And he tells him, no, there's no catch. The only real deal here is we're playing at Cottonwood, where you once shot a 59. And if you don't know what shooting a 59 is, that is incredible in golf. Most courses, 72 is your par, so that is an incredible game. And Tin Cup gets it in his head that Sims wants him to play with him, and Sims like, no, hang on. I just want you to caddy for me. And this is where you see one of the only good decisions Tin Cup makes in the movie, because he obviously needs money. So he's like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll do it. Even though it's, a blast to his pride.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes right into that, from that into the tournament, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So I have the movie pulled up beside me as we go because, well, I did just watch it again. You guys know my memory. I apologize. I'm trying to.
And there's a lot of exposition given in this scene between Romeo and Don Johnson or Sims, and then Tin Cup and Sims. We get a lot of little droppings of the history between these two characters and how they used to be friends in college, and then they went different directions, and Don Johnson turned into an asshole and Roy turned into an asshole, and
yeah, they just turned into different assholes,
different kinds of dicks on different kinds of different extremes. And there's what I tried to understand as I was watching that scene is, okay, so Don Johnson's coming up to get Tin Cup to come with him as a dominance play, like, I'm going to extend you this opportunity, but you're going to have to be my subservient to this, because I'm going to lord it over you in a way that I'm better than you are and you're desperate.
Well, that's part of it. Absolutely. But it's also a sign of swallowing your pride on his side, because he knows Tin Cup knows this course better than anyone. I mean, if you shoot a 59 on a course, you fucking own it. They might as well name it after you.
Right.
But there's a great scene right at the beginning of this where Don Johnson has to make a shot, and Roy gives him the club he thinks he should use here, and they have a fight over it. The reason being, there's water up ahead, and if you land it in the water, there's a penalty for that. And Roy's like, you can make this shot. Use the bigger club. Take the bigger chance. Yes. And Don Johnson's like, I know I can make it, but I'm clinging to a small lead here. I'm going to do this smart thing. And this is really those two characters in a nutshell.
Well, this is supposedly, and I say supposedly because we'll get to it later, but this is the major sort of back and forth throughout the whole film. Taking a chance rather than playing it safe. Yes. Playing it safe versus taking a chance. Now, in this one, Don Johnson takes the there's good arguments for both sides, because Don Johnson's like, yeah, I could take that shot and I could make it, but if I'm even a little bit off, I get a penalty and I'm fucked. If I take the conservative play, I can still win. It's sort of the Moneyball kind of thing. It's like, are we going to do the thing that will get us to the win, even if it's not flashy, or are we going to do the flashy, heroic thing that might get us to the win?
And this is, I was thinking about this before I ever knew Ron Shelton had wrote this and White Men Can't Jump. When I was thinking about this movie last night, it's like, you know what? In White Men Can't Jump, I forget the names of the characters in that, but Woody Harrelson makes the point, a black guy would rather look flashy and lose, where a white guy would rather look stupid and win.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing right here. The golf pro would rather look stupid and win. Take the easy shot and win, than look flashy and possibly lose, which is what Roy would do. Anyway, there comes a point where Roy ends up golfing in the tournament as a caddy.
There's a guy. Well, the people watching the shot, they overhear Don Johnson and I'm just going to call him Don Johnson and Costner arguing. And so after Don Johnson takes his hit, somebody says, "I'll bet blah 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 that the caddy can't make the shot," because he was like arguing with him. Nobody knows who the caddy is because he's a nobody at that point.
Yep.
And Don Johnson tells him, it's like, you take that shot, you're fired. Which to me, it's like, okay, so you're going to fire the guy that you needed in order to make this course. But okay, but of course Roy's ego can't, be surpassed. So he goes ahead and takes the shot and he makes it.
Yep.
And impresses everybody. It's like, oh my God, who is this guy? And in the course of this, we get a whole lot of extra exposition about Roy and everything else. A lot of the scenes in this are about telling us who these people are, because nothing would organically come out this way otherwise.
There's a great golfer in this movie. His name's Roy. Oh shit, what the hell's his name? Not Roy. Oh fuck, I know his name. He's the guy with the big mustache, Gary McCord. And he does do golf commentary on golfing. Yes, I've watched live golf and I know who these people are. They use him almost strictly for exposition in this movie, because I believe it's in this scene. He tells us this is a local golf pro who, whatever, and tells us all about him, even though there's no way the Golf Channel or whoever's running this would have any reason to know who the fuck he is.
Right. Yeah. And
it's one of those breaking moments for me.
There's a lot of not being a golf. I'm not a sports fan in any way, but I'm definitely not a golf fan. I'm pretty sure there were a whole bunch of cameos of like really famous golfers in this that came onto this deal. And I know they point out a couple that I'm like, okay, is that just the name of a side character, or is that actually a real person? So aside from that, but
yeah, the pro golfers you hear the names of, those are all real. And Gary McCord, the guy who's doing the commentary, he's known as being a complete clown. It's one of the reasons I loved seeing him in the movie. He actually wrote the book Golf for Dummies. Yeah. Anyway, he's a great guy. Funny as hell. So the next scene we see is Romeo and Tin Cup in their Winnebago talking about what just happened.
Yep. And
it's another one where they really drive home the point of who Roy is early in this movie.
Oh, well, I mean, this is another one of those scenes that kind of like broke it for me a little bit, because Cheech is telling Roy about his own life. I mean, it's another round of personal biography exposition where Cheech has to remind Roy about everything that happened to him in his life and And yeah, I understand it's necessary in order to set up things. It's just a little bit heavy-handed. It's like I don't
mind this one, because you are right, because they talk about why he fell from grace in this scene.
Yeah.
But the point that is made there is he tells him, I would take that shot again. And Romeo's like, I know you would. And the whole time that they're doing it, Roy is defending himself. And Romeo, the way Romeo talks to him, he's like, it's very casual. It's like, I know who you are. I understand you do that again. Doesn't make it smart. I get it. So I like the way it came off. But you're right. There's a lot of exposition that happens way early in this movie where that goes. And the next scene is another one, because Roy goes to pay off a debt to a stripper.
Yeah, this is really weird, because it was such a sudden transition. It's like now we're going to go from him getting fired from this caddy thing to talking about how he would have taken that shot again, and this is just the way he is too. Suddenly, we're driving to pay off a $12,000 debt to an ex-girlfriend who is the owner of a strip club and a stripper herself, and who it was just such, it was so sudden and just like, what are we doing now?
I
don't know. It was
almost
very
wonder if there's a scene missing from this movie.
Well,
Because
I think that, yeah, well, they had plenty of time to put it in there.
well, yeah, but you go from going back to when Don Johnson first shows up.
Mhm.
We don't have a good reason why Tin Cup would spoil his or swallow his pride to do this. They don't give that to us.
No, they don't. I mean, aside from the fact that we see that he's living like a hobo, basically,
Sure.
but they don't really establish that he's in financial straits or anything. Like, not to the point where he's like desperate for money.
Yeah,
Because he's still running the floodlights at 7 p.m. to do night golf with a doctor that shows up out of nowhere. So it's like, well, is he really hurting for money at this point?
yeah, exactly. And when he goes to the stripper and he's giving her his golf range, which is all he has. Excuse me, all he has in life.
Did they ever tell us what he's in debt to her for?
No.
Because she's like, what would I want to do? Why would I want a golf range or a driving range? But anyway, the relationship between them is just like acidic.
It is. Yeah.
She's not completely out of sorts. I mean, she's basically just being a businesswoman, which is great. And I was fine with that. She's just like, what do I want this? Like, okay, this is maybe worth $10,000. You still owe me $2,000. And then he goes off to sell his clubs.
Yep, he goes off and sells his golf clubs, which is another thing. Like I said, I feel like there's a scene missing early in this movie where like she was really coming down on him or something for this money.
Yeah. Or some conversation. I mean, we had so much exposition about his past. It's really confusing that they didn't take a moment to say, you know, gosh, if I can't find $12,000 in the next blah, blah, blah to pay off her, I'm going to have to shut this place down. You know, something like that. It would have given us like a little bit more motivation for him to be doing the things that he's doing later on, but they never do that. It's really weird.
And even in that conversation, like you said, they don't tell us why he owes her this money.
No, they never do.
And she doesn't seem real heavy-handed about getting the money either. This is worth $10,000. You still owe me $2,000. You need to have it by next Friday or I'm going to break your knees. You know,
that happens. Yeah. He doesn't owe the mob or something. It's like the most unthreatening financial crisis for somebody that I've ever seen, because we don't get like a call from her saying, you come down here and see me today or else, you know, you're going to get in trouble for X, Y, and Z. They just kind of go there. And by the way, we owe $12,000. Yeah, there's some connective tissue missing here that threw me off. But anyway, we could dwell on that all day.
Yeah, again, guys, the beginning of this movie almost lost me. It really did. So the next thing we see is Rene Russo, and it's kind of a blurred shot. You see her form and Kevin Costner walking up. He's late for their next lesson.
Which doesn't make any sense because when they left off in the last one, she says same time next week, and it's like the morning or the early afternoon when they're there. Like, wait a second, wasn't it 7 p.m. when you had your first lesson?
And yeah, suddenly it's the whole time zone has changed in West Texas.
Yeah. Anyway,
but he's starting to make his move on her. He's actually got his hands on her hips. And who walks up and well, he's actually giving this his own exposition where he's guessing that her boyfriend plays golf and that she's wanting to get into golf for him. And he makes the comment,
and he sexually assaults her in the process.
Basically, yes, by today's standards.
By today's standards, he basically put his finger inside her.
He makes the comment, hell, I bet I even know the guy. And who should walk up but Don Johnson, who says, take your hands off her ass, Roy, which is one of my favorite lines of this whole movie. And to get to why she's here, because you brought that up a little while earlier, I think she lives in the area. Like
her office is in the town.
Yeah,
which is weird.
Well,
but, yeah.
They never actually say that it's in the town.
Well, no, I mean it says Salome. It says Salome on the building when he goes down there too. There and Salome is the name of the town.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah.
And Don Johnson had been in town for his tournament and to get Roy. So it might be a little bit of a jump, but it kind of makes sense that those two could have hooked up. And I never really had much of a problem with that part.
I know. I'm the nitpicker. Don't worry.
You are.
Don't mind me.
But the next scene we have is in the Winnebago again with Romeo and Kevin Costner. And Kevin Costner is just going off about how she must think he's some kind of idiot. She must think I'm nothing. She's dating this pro and I'm just this driving range pro. And Romeo casually says, well, you could win the US Open.
Okay, so real quick. This is the scene where several things broke for me. And this is the beginning of my biggest problem with this movie.
Okay.
Okay, so...
Come in.
Uh-oh. Who's there?
I think there's a little butt at my door.
Is there a grand monkey? Is it time for a grand monkey intermission?
Come here, baby. Come say hi to everybody. Grandpa's live. Come say hi. Oh, she's shutting out Grandma. Come here. Come here.
No, you can come in.
Oh, you can come in.
Thank you.
Can you come say hi to everybody real quick so I can get back to what we were doing? Come here. Come here, little one. You look so pretty today. Oh, say hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Say Tin Cup is a great movie.
Tin Cup is a great movie.
Say I love my grandpa.
I love you, my grandpa.
I love you, my little one. Mwah. Oh, you're so sweet. You're cold. Did you not have your jacket on out there? No. Mwah. I love you.
I don't want to.
Oh, yep. Grandpa put his Legos together. You gonna steal them? Okay. There you go. You can have the Spider-Man one. You want the other one?
Well, you can't take those outside though.
Oh, are you guys going back out?
Yeah.
Oh. You can have those when you come back in, okay? You can't take those outside. You'll lose them, baby.
They're too little for outside.
Yeah, you can have them when you come back in, okay? I love you.
I don't want to have them outside.
No, not outside. You can have them when you come back in. When you come back in, you come right to my door and you can come get them, okay? Okay, guys. I forgot where we left off there.
Oh, so this is... Uh-oh.
There's them in here.
Well, I got to do my stream, honey. You can go play with them over there by Grandma.
Okay.
Okay. Here you go. I love you. So you said this is where it broke.
This is where a couple things. So first, I'll get to the somewhat minor nitpick. The thing that didn't make any sense to me is that Roy is explaining the U.S. Open to Romeo. Romeo, who had just given us chapter and verse on Roy's history and golf. Why would these things need to be said out loud between these two people as to how the U.S. Open works? That's the thing that bugged me. But the thing about this scene that starts my biggest problem with this movie is the movie tells me that Kevin Costner and Rene Russo have a thing. At no point in the movie is there a moment, is there a spark, is there a sense of surrender between the two of them that tells me that they're interested in each other at all. I mean, he is pursuing her, but I never understand why. It's never explained to me, like, why is he going after her of all people, or why is she interested in him?
There's two things there. One,
super chat.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, here's the cute fee. Thank you, James Colley. In the scene where Don Johnson first comes up,
okay,
and there's actually, I mean, if you pay attention to their body chemistry and everything, you can kind of see where this is coming from. But in that scene, when Don Johnson comes up, when Roy backs off from her, he just kind of looks at Don Johnson. But if you watch Rene Russo at this point, she jumps like she did something wrong. She doesn't jump like somebody who was just being assaulted against their will. She jumps like somebody who was kind of into getting her ass rubbed by this guy.
Okay, but like I say, this isn't a movie about nuance a whole lot, especially when it comes to a lot of things. I needed some. There had to be some moment, some event where I thought that these two were actually falling for each other. And there are scenes where we're told that they are. There are scenes where we're supposedly supposed to interpret it as, oh, they have an attraction, but there's no spark moment to make me think that this is real and not purely manufactured by the script. I know that sounds weird saying manufactured by the script, but
No.
it never feels organic. It feels like it's kind of just, oh, they're going to pursue each other now. It felt very mechanical all of a sudden, or out of the blue, I should say.
See, for me, it worked fine, the two of them. What didn't work was why she was there in the first place.
Yeah.
It would have made more sense for her to go to a decent shop than to Roy's place in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, now if it had come out that like David Sims had been so Machiavellian as to suggest she go to Roy in order that he could try to use her as leverage to get him to do what he wanted or something, that would have been interesting. That would have made him a much more conniving villain than he was in this movie, because he didn't come across so much as a villain, just like an asshole. But
that's the thing. I don't think he is a villain.
No, he's not. He's not even much of an obstacle. He just kind of like as soon as things don't go his way, he just kind of like steps aside. There's no real opposition or something. There's just sort of like what am I trying to say? He's more just sort of like tormenting him a little bit, but not doing anything.
Well, I think the again, as we talked about with the making him his caddy, was kind of a two-way street. Part of it was this guy is the best, so I might as well have the best. But it was also this is also the guy I can fuck with by making him my caddy. But when it comes to the relationship with these two, the next scene is telling, in my opinion. So what happens is Roy. Wait, did the golf scene come first? Hang on, I got to go back.
So after they talk about the U.S. Open, they know they're going to need, because he needs his clubs in order to go try to participate in the opening stuff for the U.S. Open. But he's already sold his clubs to try to pay back the girlfriend. So he goes and does a golf hustle on some guy he knows at the golf course using lawn equipment.
Yes, and this is one of those things that for me broke the movie. Because nobody is going to play golf against somebody with a fucking baseball bat.
Yeah, or a shovel and a rake and all this.
If you know anything about how balls work, you can hit a golf ball a lot farther with a baseball bat than you can with a golf club most of the time. No shit. But they do play it up as that this guy has a pride thing at stake too. Pride is a big thing in this whole movie.
Pride and gambling, taking chances and ego and chances are the biggest driving forces of this story.
This is a guy who lost his car to Tin Cup before
the Winnebago.
Was it the Winnebago? I thought it was a Cadillac.
No, I think he said he's betting the guy his Cadillac. But he said something like, you can tell all the guys you won your Cadillac off me instead of having to tell them that I won that Winnebago off you.
Okay. Yeah. You're probably right there. But he of course wins with a pool shot on the green,
which is so silly. I just thought, okay, I understand this is the comedy bit. And I remember this from the trailer, but it's just, the other couple things is that the guy that they're hustling, he looks at Romeo and says, I'm going to call the INS on you.
Yes.
I thought that was kind of funny.
I'm going to call the INS on you, you little midget. It's
you
one of my favorite lines.
And then the other one is that he pulls out a pink ball and he says, "What's that? Your pig fag ball?"
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. I was just like, it's so weird to like watch a movie from just several years ago and think none of this would be allowed today in a romantic comedy. It's like they would have lined out all this shit.
And it's not even stuff that's that bad. It's not the banter you would expect.
Right. Except that I would be amazed if anybody allowed this anywhere near a romantic comedy today. They'd write that shit out real quick.
So he wins, of course. He gets his money so he can go get his clubs. And him and Romeo have a little discussion as they're walking away from getting the clubs back. And we find out that Roy has decided he needs therapy, and he's going to go see Dr. Molly Griswold, whatever the fuck her name is. And Romeo says that you can't ask for advice on how to hose a woman from the woman you're trying to hose, and Tin Cup's like, why not? And why not? That is Tin Cup in a nutshell. Hang on, there's another little scene here I just saw. I don't know why.
Or are you skipping through the movie?
I have it playing beside me to remember the. You know how normally I don't remember the order of the movie? I have come up with a solution for that. I have it playing with no sound beside me, and I can pause it as I need to and go to the next scene. Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
So the next scene there is Roy asking Maureen, the stripper, for time off to go win the U.S. Open because it is his quest.
His quest. Now this is the other thing that made me think that maybe this is based off of some, or it's structured upon some ancient legend or something, because he refers to this as his quest several times, and it's little mentions like Salome and Romeo, and it's a quest, that kind of thing that makes me think that this is an allegory for another story, basically.
And yeah, the quest part is another good. I just think the character of Tin Cup is done so well. He's using that not so much as this is my quest to win the U.S. Open. That is facetious. He doesn't give a fuck about winning the U.S. Open. He wants to impress the girl.
Right.
That's all it's about. But he starts using this, it's my quest, as though it's, there's some divine thing that's pushing him. No, it's not. It's your fucking dick. We all know that.
Yes.
But he's trying to sell it to other people as well as to himself. This is my quest. And of course, the stripper tells him, no, you can't have time off. And she ends up hanging up on him. And that's when he starts getting very belligerent to her after she's hung up for Romeo's sake, who doesn't believe him anyway.
Yeah.
And then we move on to Dr. Molly's office. Kevin has decided to go get himself some therapy.
And her office is still under construction. It's like she moved in like 3 days ago and is still painting the walls.
But she's already got clients.
Yeah, somehow she's already got clients.
And it could be that she's moved locations or something. They never really give a good explanation for that.
And they never really give a good explanation. Like, why would she move here and not Houston?
Yeah, don't think on it too much.
I know. It's just that they make a point all the time of like, Roy McAvoy from the middle of Salome? Where the hell is Salome? Like, okay, and so she moves her psychology practice to where there's like maybe 300 people population, I'm assuming. But it's like, okay, yeah, all right, moving on.
Now, there's a great little scene here I'm not going to ruin for you because it's comedy. It's all it is. But eventually Roy ends up in Molly's office. And as you look at Roy, he's cleaned himself up. He's shaved, which he never does. He's wearing a
bad tie,
and he's wearing khakis. And there's actually a great moment in this where he puts his feet up on the couch, and she can see he's actually wearing his golf shoes. He's just taking the spikes out.
Right, that was funny
because that's how he cleans up. He doesn't know any better. But he's there to talk to her, and he even tells he's got this woman on his mind, and he doesn't know how to let her know. And this is one of those parts that with you said, you don't really get it. It's kind of a love at first sight thing. Kind of, it's not really, because it's been a couple of times that he's seen her, but she gets in his head. She gets in his head and she moves in there. And sometimes there's no real good explanation for why.
It's called obsessive compulsive disorder, and he's a stalker. No, so seriously, this is a scene where you would have thought that if she already had some kind of oomph for him, when he starts talking about a girl, they would have made a point of putting like this look of disappointment on her face. But she's just like, oh, okay, and she just kind of moves on through it. And it's something where. So far as I can tell, by the end of this, she honestly did not know he was talking about her. That's what came across to me. Now, if they'd been having this conversation where he's pretending he's not talking about her, and she's pretending like she doesn't know he's talking about her, and they have some kind of tension there or something, that would have at least supported the notion that there's something already between them. But
well, here's the thing: there's not already something between them.
I know, and that's the thing. Well, it's like
no. I'm going to explain. I'm gonna explain here. In this scene, he does eventually tell her that he's talking about her, and it completely flusters her. She just doesn't know how to handle it, and she actually ends up calling her old. They never say. I'm assuming it's their teacher, because she says, you say if we ever had anything, well, I have something, and you can see how flustered she is. If you go back to like the scene where David first pulls up and Tin Cup's holding her ass, she might have the idea, okay, this guy likes me. I'm kind of attracted to him. That's why she felt a little guilty about it. But there's no, on the female side of it, no love interest there. It's something that she could completely forget about.
Right.
Until she realizes that this dude has like some serious feelings for her. She's not just going to be, this week's piece of ass to him. And go ahead.
Well, so this is another one of those points in the movie where I felt like it's sort of, we're told that she's supposed to be interested in it because she has this phone call with her mentor / psychologist of her own, basically. Mm-hmm. And you only hear one side of the conversation. It's done in a bunch of quick cuts of her reacting to what he's saying. And by the time she hangs up, it's almost like, and I know I'm reading too much into this, but in the scope of the entire movie, it's almost like the script writer was on the other end of the phone telling her, okay, this is the point where you have to be in love with him. It felt that artificial, honestly, to me. It felt like, oh, this is the moment where she has to realize that she might actually have feelings for him too. It felt really injected. I hate to say it.
And just based on personal experience, I know a lot of women who don't get interested in a guy until they realize he's interested in her.
Okay.
So for me, it wasn't that breaking. It's a weird scene. It really is. Because you're right. It happens probably way too fast. This should have been a call she made. Like, if they really wanted to sell it properly, like the next day, have her with a new client, and she actually has to stop the thing to call him because she can't. But
all this needed for me was some moment where the lesson, the antagonism in the lesson became something else, or if they looked into each other's eyes and there's a quiet moment, you get some sense of chemistry, some sort of click between them, like a moment where they are in the same place at the same time. Unfortunately, Kevin Costner's character has this realization without her there, and she has this realization without Kevin Costner there. And then we're supposed to believe that, oh, now they're attracted to each other? Again, I'm not going to harp on this too much more. I think I've made my point on it.
Sure.
And nothing else in the movie kind of makes up for that, because once you've gone past that point, you can't sort of go backwards and have the moment after. So anyway, moving on.
Moving on. After the phone call, Molly shows up at Kevin's Winnebago. And we know it's the same day because he's still wearing the same clothes. He's got his white dress shirt open and his undershirt showing. And she explains to him that she can't be with him, but she'd be willing to help him psychologically for the U.S. Open. Because he did tell her when she told him, as she's kicking him out of his office after the "I love you" conversation, basically, he told her, I'm gonna win the U.S. Open. And that's why she comes to talk to him. I'll help you with your crap. And this is one of those things that I do think makes up for. This is where me and him are going to argue. Because she still wants to be close to him, and she's making an excuse to. Go ahead.
She also confesses to him this chain of bad relationship decisions that brought her to this town in the first place. And I'm like, and as I'm listening to her talk about, like a cowboy brought me here and this, that, and the other thing, I'm like, do you think maybe you might be making another one of those bad decisions?
Well, yeah, and that's part of the point here. And again, guys, when we get to the end of this, it makes a lot more sense. It really does.
So you say.
I'm writing down bad decisions because I want to make sure I touch on that.
Oh, sure.
But anyway, so we get to Roy has to qualify. He has to do a couple of qualifying rounds. And he goes out and he actually plays real golf. He's not the bad golfer. He's playing an actual round of good golf. Until he comes to a time when he wants to use a club, and Romeo, who's his caddy, tells him, no, you need to take the safe shot. And they had a discussion. Man, this movie has got so much exposition. I apologize for missing this part. Romeo had told him, you never listened to me, and Kevin Costner, I'll listen, I promise. So it comes down to this part, and it was a very small one. They have a much bigger one later. It comes down to, and Romeo's like, look, you never listen to me. And Roy's like, fine. He takes the club and breaks it over his fucking knee. He goes, there, now give me the club I asked for. And Romeo breaks that one. So in short order, Kevin Costner breaks all of the other clubs except for his 7-iron, which he uses to play the rest of the game. But Romeo's left, and Earl picks up the bag to be the caddy, which becomes funny at one point later on. And Kevin Costner finishes the course, still qualifying for whatever score he had to have with just his 7-iron.
Now, this I thought would be a defining moment in the movie because well, hold on. So Romeo is telling Roy, you need to play it safe. Your flashiness and your ego is going to get you shot down. But there's no consequence. Romeo leaving, all the clubs being gone, he still makes it. He doesn't play it safe. He does it exactly the way that he did it and was reckless by breaking all the clubs that he just went through the process of getting back from having pawned, and where he's going to buy a new set of clubs, I don't know. But there's no downside to Romeo's warning. It doesn't have any effect.
There is and there isn't. No, listen, hear me out. There's not with him playing, because they want to stress this is a very good golfer. Yes. And
even with just a 7-iron, he does exceptionally well. Yes.
Actually, because he's doing very well, he barely ends up qualifying. If you pay attention to what he gets, he ends up. But where the consequence comes in is, one, he's lost Romeo for now, and two is the scene where they're celebrating, because him and all of his friends are around celebrating after the game, and who should come to pick up Molly, who's there for the psychological support, but David. And Tin Cup asks him if he's ever played or shot whatever it was he shot with a 7-iron. He goes, hell, Roy, I never even thought to try.
Right.
And then there's a bet, a man's bet. Who can hit a ball the farthest with a 7-iron?
Yes.
And Roy bets his car against, I forget what David put up, but Roy gets out there and hits a ball far with a 7-iron,
like 252, I think it was.
And David is just smiling, and he's actually got on like a coat and everything, and Roy's like, do you want to take a few practice swings? He's like, no, I got this. And in the bet, they never specify it has to be onto the golf course.
Right.
What David does is lines up and hits a ball down the street.
Yeah, and it just bounces all and rolls down forever.
A golf ball will go forever on asphalt.
Yeah.
So he wins the bet. And this is where there's the consequence, because his pride, he's good enough to finish a round of golf with a 7-iron. Finish, remember, not play the whole thing. But his ego, his pride, costs him his car.
Yes, and I want to underline at this moment in the movie, he loses his car.
They explain how he gets it back.
They don't explain how he gets it back.
Yes, they do.
They do?
Yes.
Okay, because if they explained how he gets his car back all of a sudden later on, I completely missed it. But all right, okay, I'll take your word for it.
They do actually.
Okay, all right. It
So
seemed awfully convenient. But again, no consequence.
Well, there is. A lot of this is mental. Anyway, so he goes to his next round of golf because there was a second qualifier he had to do, and Earl has to be his caddy, and
yes,
it's horrible. Poor Earl's a fat guy who can't walk it, but this time he plays it completely safe, qualifies for the Open, and then we see him coming back to his what's the word I'm looking for here?
Pro
golf
shop.
Yes, pro shop, to talk to Romeo. And
this was my favorite scene in the movie because this one made me laugh out loud as I was watching it.
Yeah, it is a great scene, and guys, I'm not going to ruin it all for you. Basically, he talks Romeo into becoming his caddy again for the U.S. Open because he's now qualified for the U.S. Open.
Yeah, but and there was, I mean, the scene was comedic and the scene was great between them. But again, they had this falling out over Roy's inherent flaw. Like I said, I only watched it the one time. You've seen it more times than I have.
Sure.
After that conversation, I never got the sense that Romeo thought that Roy was going to do anything different. So did Romeo just kind of give up?
Romeo is his friend who...
Well, I know, but he was his friend. Yeah, as mad as he was.
He still understands who Roy is, and he still has hope that this guy is going to get his shit together.
Yeah.
It's not about him thinking that Roy's actually going to change. He knows he's not. He knows deep down he's not because he knows who this man is. But he's his friend, and he still has that hope.
Oh, I have a note here. I just wanted to point out that on the wall in between them as they're having this conversation is a sign that says "No gambling allowed on the premises."
Yes.
Which I thought was just like, oh.
Well, that's also, I mean, that's a golf joke, especially because you're not supposed to bet on most golf courses, and
right.
Private betting goes on all the time. Yeah. So anyway, Roy and Romeo go outside for a little nighttime driving range practice, and we find out Roy has the shanks. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it means he can't hit a golf ball straight to save his life.
All of a sudden.
Yes, all of a sudden. And as a golfer,
doesn't make any sense.
It does. It absolutely does if you golf. Let me share with you a story. I was golfing one time and Lady Monkey came with me. I was having a great round, and we come to the seventh hole, and I hit the ball, and for some reason it went left on me, and like, all right, fuck it, no big deal. I got this. Put down another ball, hit it, and went the same way. And by the time I was done with this tee, I had thrown a golf club and it hit me in my nuts because it hit the ground and bounced straight back. In golf, golf is a very mental game. In so much, if something gets in your fucking head, you might as well stop.
Yeah, well, see, now him losing his mojo, let's say, would have made more sense if the scene just prior to this had him been losing his card to the bet. But it wasn't him losing his card to the bet. The scene before this was him winning the qualification.
Okay. Let me help you with the psychology there.
Okay.
This is somebody who in his professional life after college has never done anything.
Yes.
As you pointed out, most of what he does has no real consequence to him because he's going to live his life however he wants to anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to the U.S. Open because he wants to get this woman's attention, and suddenly that's the reality. He's got the qualification in. He's got his caddy back, and the only thing left to do is actually go play it and do it.
See, now I could believe that if there'd been a moment where like he's outside, he's going to tee up a shot, and they're talking about him going to the U.S. Open, and he says to himself, "Man, I'm going to the U.S. Open."
Except that's not.
I'm going to the U.S. Open. Well, I know, but you see, this is the problem. I'm not a golfer. Okay, sure. I'm not a golfer. I don't know the first thing about golf. I'd never seen this movie before.
Yeah,
I am a dumb audience member who needs, if they're going to have ham-handed exposition for everything else,
That's
They
fair.
need to have a little bit of ham-handed injection of, here's a cue that something has changed in the plot. Here's a cue that the relationship between him and Griswold has gone to another level with them in the same room together. Here's a cue that Roy's mind has suddenly snapped, that his mojo has gone the other way because, yeah, he's actually accomplishing something, and that goes against his psychology, and that's when he loses his ability. If they just done something like that, I would have bought it, but they didn't. It just happened out of nowhere.
They tried to, and what you just said there is absolutely fair if you don't know golf and if you're not a golfer who's dealt with something like that. Romeo tries to explain to him nobody knows where the yips come from. They just pop up. But you're right. Yeah. If they had done, if he had, if they'd explained that a little bit more, yeah, you're right.
They had a musical cue or something, like he's standing there, he's lining up his shot, and he's thinking like, I'm going to the U.S. Open. I'm going to the U.S. Open. And then suddenly you get like this downbeat sort of like, doo kind of thing or something as he makes his swing to sort of signify, because we're already talking about he's going on a quest, that this is a destiny kind of thing. You don't have to make it supernatural, but you could at least introduce the fact that, okay, now the gods of, and he talks about the gods, he talks about the golf gods in the wind. There's this very high level sort of divine thing going on. You could at least have that moment where the gods sort of, undercut his heels. He's flown too close to the sun, something, but they don't. And so it's kind of like, now he has to lose his mojo just like that. The script came in and said, no.
I think they relied too much on the notion of psychology in the movie as carrying that part.
Yeah, sure. But unfortunately, in a movie, we can't read the character's mind.
No,
there has to be a little external, even if it was just a facial look. It could be something subtle, but there had to be a clue, and I never saw it. And again, I've only seen the movie the one time. So,
thank you, Flair Fritz. Since it's your birthday, I thought I'd stop in and give you more midget hooker money. Hope you get that birthday booty. Love you, bud. Thank you so much, Fritz. Love you back.
Thanks, Fritz.
And yeah, thank you for the birthday wishes, guys. I have seen them in chat. But if you watch these with us, we don't pay attention to chat much at all because we just get to talking. Anyway, if they had done, you're absolutely right. What they should have done here is when he goes to take that first swing.
Yes.
Have him make some, even if it's just for a moment, a serious look before he goes back to himself.
Yeah.
Just something to signify. Yeah, you're right. Because
something's changed. Yeah. That's all I would have needed, but that never happened.
And in that, they probably rely too much on golfers watching this movie. Because when I watched it, I got it immediately.
Okay.
I was like, I get what's going on here. So anyway, in the very next scene, and this is where they explain the car is back.
Okay.
Rene Russo shows up, and Roy is in his Winnebago wearing all of this funky golf gear that she had bought on the Golf Channel that he told her not to mess with. And when she comes up, she tells him, I brought the car back. David said he was just trying to teach you a lesson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I must have missed that line in the hilarity of him wearing that dangly thing in front of his face.
Yeah, it is really quick. It is very fast.
And very convenient, too. Again, just like, oh, he's just trying to teach you a lesson.
Well, okay. I mean, and it fits with them because David is not a horrible person. He's just kind of an asshole.
Yeah, and something else. Every time that they talk about David behind his back, they try to say like, he's mean to children, old people, and dogs. Yes. They say that a lot. It said a lot, and every time that I heard them say that, I'm like, there's going to be a scene somewhere where he's like kicking a dog, isn't there? I'm just waiting for that to happen. That specifically didn't happen, but it eventually did pay off.
It did, and it was the payoff that I expected from that line.
Yes.
But yeah, so. He's explaining to Renee he can't hit a ball straight anymore, and she agrees to go on a drive with him. Now, this is one of the parts I'll give you because the romantic part of this does seem a little forced. I get parts of it, but like she agrees to go on a late afternoon drive with him, and they end up
in the most awkward situation two people can be in. Where they're off in the middle of nowhere, he's making a move, she's completely cold fish to him and feeling uncomfortable, and then she's like, I think we better leave. And I'm like, okay, this would be the end of a relationship at this point. That would be like he's almost getting a little too I wrote it down in my notes. I said Scenes seem to try to convince the audience there's chemistry between the two, but there is no moment. He's getting a little rapey. That's how I wrote it down.
He kind of, they did a better job in this scene of her reacting to him in a, I don't think it comes off how they wanted it to, really.
Okay.
But it's supposed to be she's fighting her feelings.
Okay.
And they did a better job if you watch her facial reactions and movements than they did anywhere else in the movie, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But she does kind of come off as a woman who, okay, I kind of want to do this, but I can't. And this scene didn't even need to be in the fucking movie. It really didn't.
No. And something I said to Monkey yesterday, and I've mentioned a couple times. He asked me last night on the Lords of the Night show, what's my overall impression of the movie? And the very first thing I said was it could have been 45 minutes shorter.
Yes.
Because there is so much superfluous scenery in this, and scenes that either don't make sense or don't need to be there. This one felt like the acting between the two was convincing to me, like because it felt super awkward, but it also felt completely out of place if what they're trying to do is set up a romance. Because I didn't get a struggle of her fighting her feelings. I got a struggle of her not feeling comfortable with him coming on to her. That's what I came away from the scene with, and that's why it made everything else that followed even less believable as far as a romance between these two. So again, maybe it's just.
With her character, I think they could have done the only clue we get that she's like bad with men and stuff is that exposition she gave Kevin earlier in the movie. I always pick the worst men. We don't really get the sense that she's this horrible psychologist who probably should not have that job. Let's be honest. Yeah, she should not be a psychologist.
Well, she talked about how like psychology was a new thing for her. Like she'd done real estate before or something, and a bunch of other stuff. That this was like just the latest gig. So if they were trying to imply that she, like Roy, sort of has a hard time sticking to and committing to one thing for very long, this doesn't sound like a match made in heaven. I don't know what to say.
Well, see, that's one of the things I love about this movie, and I wish they would have done her character a little better. We'll get to that here at the end. Let's keep going. So the next scene, we see the Winnebago take off, and then we're at the open.
The NBC music plays. You know, it's like this big grand music starts playing, like it's NBC political night or something.
If you like golf, there's this beautiful shot of this fairway. It is fucking gorgeous. And then we see Kevin Costner's at driving practice with everyone else. And he keeps shanking the ball, and he almost hits several pros. And it's like, what do I do, Romeo? What do I do? And Romeo, okay, you're hitting it to the left, so put all of your change in your left pocket. Turn your hat to the left. I forget what else he says.
Oh, put a golfing tee behind your left ear.
Left ear, yeah. And Kevin, I look fucking ridiculous. He goes, no more ridiculous than shooting chili peppers at Lee Jensen's ass. I fucking love that line. And
there are some good lines in this,
yeah, there are a lot of good lines in this. Again, the guy who wrote this has written so many movies that have good dialogue in them. But it makes the point, and this might be a part, if you're not a golfer, you don't get the way you fix something like this is to get out of your head. And it's incredibly hard to do when you're on the golf course unless something fucking ridiculous happens. So again, this is one that if you're not a golfer, they probably should have explained better.
Yeah, because to me, watching it, I was just kind of like, okay, so he lost his mojo for like 5 seconds, and then he got it back before it mattered that he needed it back.
Well, it's longer than 5 seconds because I know, it might seem silly to people who don't golf, but and this goes for it happens in a lot of sports, baseball, football. The moment you start thinking about it instead of just doing it, everything goes to shit. And the only way I can sympathize with this, honestly, is I've been there. I know, fucking been there.
I'm just saying, for the sake of like storytelling,
yes,
it should have lasted longer. His losing his mojo should have lasted into the first round or something, and then at some point, something should have happened. Like she kisses him or something and gives him like the oomph to go on his quest to continue onward or something. I needed this movie lacked moments that needed to drive things forward.
I get what you're saying there, but to anybody who golfs, that would have been the worst possible thing to happen.
I know it's cheese and it's totally Hollywood.
It's not cheese. It's in common sense, real world things. That would be, let's say you're going out there to come on in, little one. You're going out there to do something important, and a woman gives you her love. That is a reaffirming thing.
Yes.
But when that woman is the reason you can't think straight, and that's why you can't hit a ball.
Well, I know they shouldn't have made her the thing. Is the problem?
Exactly.
They shouldn't have made her. They should have made David the thing.
Did you miss me?
Oh.
Yeah, but what Romeo does there? Oh, you coming back up? Okay, you come sit with Grandpa. You're so cute. What Romeo does there in golf terms, that's exactly what you would do. You would do something to make him look like a complete jackass to get him. Oops, Grandpa's used a bad word, didn't I? I shouldn't do that, huh? That's right. She's shaking her head. To make him look like a complete fool.
Yeah.
To get him out of his head, because that's what it is. And it's one of the few times in this movie that being a golfer is actually important to what's going on to the story.
All right. I defer to you on this. I'm just giving you my sort of like non-golfer, average audience guy sort of reaction.
And you're absolutely right as an audience member. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So anyway.
So he finally hits the ball straight, and we move on. And he goes, okay, what's next? And this is where Romeo gives him the worst advice of the whole thing. He goes, now we go get you drunk.
Yes.
Because you always play better with a hangover. And so he gets him just fall out drunk. And stop pushing buttons, honey. Yeah, you're gonna close down Grandpa's stream here and see all those people. They're here to listen to me talk. Aren't they cool? Say thank you, audience.
Thank you, audience.
That's right.
WJW Willow says Scribe is wanting a Matt Damon, Theron, Bagger Vance moment. Yeah, see, when I watch a romantic comedy or something like that, a Hollywood romantic comedy, I am looking for Hollywood moments. But the other thing too is that in the absence of more effective storytelling and the nuance, I need something that's a bit more obvious, because I was lost in so many points here as I've stated. So.
Thank you, T. Ryan. Can you say thank you, T. Ryan?
Thank you, T. Ryan.
Happy birthday to the Grand Monkey. Her birthday was actually the 8th.
Yeah, this is Monkey's birthday.
This is my birthday. So, but thank you for that day. Her birthday was just she had to be born close to her grandpa. Yeah, it's one of those moments that you have to be a golfer to get, and I get why an average audience person would be like, man, that doesn't make sense.
All right. I've made my point more times than I need to.
No, it's worth driving home with this movie, because there are going to be parts, if you're not a
driving
golfer,
home.
See what I did there?
Good job.
There's going to be moments in this movie you're like, that doesn't make sense. Go out and play a round of golf. You'll get it.
Yeah. Okay.
So Romeo gets him just shit-faced drunk. Whoops. Sorry, swore again. Gets him poo-faced drunk, and he ends up waking up late and barely makes his tea time. And he asks him, hey, can I go hit a couple of balls? I'm like, no, we got to go now.
Yeah.
And he has the worst golf game he's had in a long, long time. David
so the whole curing him of his mojo thing shouldn't have happened at the point that it did. It should have happened after this, because we might as well have.
No, because this leads up to the moment that gives him his mojo back.
Okay.
Because he has such a bad round of golf, and there's actually a great scene with him and David after the round, where David, hello, where David tells him that somebody, and I forget who it was, God, I wish I could remember exactly what it was. Somebody who never should golf hit like a 78 on this course. How in the world did you manage a 79? And he says to him, I missed a putt on.
Yeah.
I missed a putt. And and thank you, James Colley. More Grand Monkey money. Thank you so much. And this is the moment where we see Renee decides to choose Roy over David, but it's not really specified because what happens is Renee sets up this really fucking weird. Oh, sorry. This really. She doesn't let me swear, guys.
I know.
This really weird golf shot where he's got to hit a ball through the clubhouse and knock a pelican off of a tree stump that's out there. And she makes a bet with David Sims, her boyfriend, that Roy can do it. And he's like, and nah, I don't want to. And Romeo talks him into it. Yeah, dude, you can do this. You can do this. And this is how you get your golf mojo back, is hitting a shot perfectly. And he does. He hits it through the house, knocks the pelican off, and everybody cheers for him. Yay. And you see kind of the breakup between Sims and Rene Russo.
Well, I think you missed a scene because didn't just before the bet and the pelican and everything, don't we see David being interviewed, walk off, and somebody asked him for his autograph?
We did, yes, and I apologize, I skipped that part, but it's a little kid that asked him for his autograph
with his grandparents.
Yes,
so it's old people and children, and he's a complete jerkwad to all of them.
Bye, little one. Bye, sweetie, love you. So yeah, and Tin Cup wins the bet, and the next scene we get is it's them fucking, isn't it? Yeah.
Suddenly, Kevin Costner and Rene Russo are having sex.
Yes, they finally give in to each other. Who didn't know that was going to happen? Blah blah. You know, except for him losing his mojo over her, she could be completely removed from this movie, and it would have made it probably better for me.
And honestly, that's as I watched the movie, I kept thinking how unnecessary the romance thing was in this. I mean, if the journey for the guy was one of self sort of like overcoming stuff, because
except it wasn't.
Yeah, well, except it wasn't, and he didn't, and so it's almost like, okay, maybe I almost part of me almost thinks the original script for this movie didn't have a love interest. And it was just him going through the motions and then this sort of like having this becoming a legend without actually winning kind of thing. And they added this afterwards because, like I said before, the romance doesn't seem to work. It seems very artificial. Them suddenly falling into bed with each other just seemed like, well, I guess that just has to happen now.
Real quick, England DG in chat tells us that the old people and child there were Kevin Costner's real kid and parents. Sweet.
Oh, neat.
But again, as a golfer,
yes,
they needed something to completely, because they built this guy up as like the greatest golfer nobody's ever heard of.
Right.
And you have to have something that got into his head that fucked that up, because otherwise he should have just walked into the open and walked away with it hands down.
But I thought that turning his hat around and putting the stuff and being looked like an idiot, I thought that was supposed to bring his mojo back. Then it was the pelican thing that brought his mojo back.
It did. He got, but it took him down a notch that he shot so bad, because he didn't shoot horrible. I mean, a 78 or 79 on a pro course is not horrible. It's what you actually drunk. Yeah, it's what you would expect from a normal person, a normal golf range pro.
Sure.
And it kind of, but yeah, that scene is not necessary, and the only reason that scene is there is because he's got to get with Renee, who bets on him finally, and she bet on him, and now they're fucking anyway.
And they make a bunch of golf jokes after they've had sex.
Yes, they do.
It was just it's like want to go again? Want to tee up? Like, oh god, seriously.
So then Kevin Costner, we get a what's the word? Montage of golfing.
Lots of montage.
As we're watching, we learn that Roy is having one hell of a game. He actually sets a course record.
I thought the movie was going to end here. I thought we were. I thought right after they had sex. I thought, I really thought that the way they set up was they finally get together. He's got his mojo back. This is going to be a montage up to the fourth round in a Rocky movie, and then we're going to have it. But no, it keeps going on.
I'm glad it does, because this movie has my favorite ending, I think, of any comedy movie ever. So Roy comes up to this shot that is very much like the one that he was giving David shit about in David's tournament. I keep going back and forth. We're just going to call him Don Johnson. In Don Johnson's tournament earlier in the movie. And he asked Romeo for a club, and Romeo's like, no, you need to use this other one. And
I think
Roy
3
hits
wood.
the ball.
Wood.
Yep. Romeo gives him the club. He's not even gonna fight with him, and Roy puts it right in the water.
Yep.
And so he just goes up, takes his drop, hits the ball, and it's the next scene where we get the Waffle House scene. This is another one that makes
no sense.
No real sense.
No
other
sense.
than to bring all his friends here. Maureen, the stripper, has decided to bring everybody down to the open, and they all meet up at the Waffle House, and Romeo and her hit it off. There's not a big reason for this scene.
And it's just so weird. It's another sort of like all of a sudden the completely acrimonious ex-girlfriend is now Roy's biggest fan.
Yes.
And she goes to the effort of like traveling all the way to where the U.S. Open is, which obviously isn't in Salome, bringing everybody with her, most of whom we still don't know their names, to sit down and be like, oh, now your cheering squad is here. And she just suddenly becomes a completely different character than the one we were introduced to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, sure, why not? At this point, why not?
And then we get another scene with Gary McCord. Tin Cup has this really shitty lie in the woods, and the only way he can get it out is to bounce the ball off of a porta potty.
Yeah, that was fun.
Which he does, and it's a cute little scene. Completely unnecessary to the rest of it. If this movie wasn't 2 hours and 15 minutes long, it would be great. The fact that this movie is that goddamn long, they probably
like I said, 45 minutes could have been chopped out of this movie, and they would have been just fine, I think.
And then we get the end of the round, basically. Is it the end of the round? Because they're going to take that shot again, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm going through the movie and I'm seeing I forget who that guy is, asking Rene Russo for a card because she did so good with Tin Cup. And I'm like,
oh, right. Yeah. Like, we might need some psychological therapy too. Like, okay. And now she has a business, I guess.
Yeah, as the open comes to a close, and I'm probably skipping steps here. As the open's coming to a close, it is Roy versus David. They are neck and neck at the top of the open. Roy's winning, of course. And all he's got to do is play smart golf, and he will win the U.S. Open and beat David. And he's got the girl. He will have accomplished all of everything he set out to do. But he comes up to that same shot again. And I may be skipping parts here.
All you're missing is just more scenes of golf stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Is not. I mean, it's there, but it's not at all necessary to taking us to where we are. Except to say that he's done a whole bunch of rounds of golf in this thing, and now we're getting to the very end. This is the finish line of the whole thing.
For the record, the finish line of this whole thing. I'm at the movie right now. Let's see. It comes at 1:55 is when this starts. And the movie's 2 hours and 15 minutes long. So you do the math on that. It's about 20 minutes of what we're about to talk about. And we're just going to skip it, most of it. Roy is right back where he was the day before. He's got literally the exact same shot he was going to shoot the day before, where he asked for his 3, put it into the water. And all he's got to do is lay up. And in golf, lay up means shoot short and then take another shot to get to the green.
Yes.
And if he had done that, he avoids the water, wins the fucking tournament, wins the U.S. Open. But he's got to take that shot. He's just got to at least once. So he asks for his 3, hits it, and it goes in the water.
It looks like it's not for a second because it hits the green and then rolls into the water.
Yeah, there's a huge backwind going on, and in golf, if you hit a ball right, you put some backspin on it, and it can cause problems.
Now when I was talking earlier about looking for those Hollywood moments, I was glad that this wasn't one of them, because as soon as he did that and that happened, I was like, oh, I hadn't I mean, I suppose it didn't come as a surprise given everything else, but I hadn't expected it to happen like that.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, now I don't know what's going to happen. And so I appreciated that of the movie because now I'm like, oh, so this isn't going where I thought it would. All right. Okay, cool.
So in golf, when your ball goes in water like that, you have two choices. You can either go shoot from behind where it went into the water, up by the water, which would basically be the same shot or the layup that he had, or the layup that we talked about, but you get a 1-stroke penalty. Or you can drop the ball where you are, take the same 1-stroke penalty and hit it again, which is exactly what Roy decides to do.
Yeah.
And it is an exceptionally bad idea. We see a whole host of Roy just drops ball after ball after ball into that.
It's like 5 different attempts or something, I think.
Yeah, it's even more than that, because when you go golfing, and you're in like a real tournament like that, you have a set number of balls you get to start with, and I forget how many it is. But as we learned from Romeo, you have to turn in 1 ball. And they get down to his last ball. He has completely botched the tournament. I mean, he's dropped from being number 1 to by now he's probably not even in the top 10. Excuse me. And 9 balls. Okay. But he's gonna take this shot again. And Romeo tells him, look, what is it? He looks at Romeo and goes, I can make this shot. And he tells him, then fucking do it.
Yeah.
So he takes the shot, and not only does he land up on the green, he fucking sinks it.
Eagle.
Fucking sinks it.
Yeah. Hole in one.
Was not what I was expecting from this movie. It really wasn't. But I love this ending. I love this ending because this is a guy who has it all. And Hollywood tells us at that point, you go with it. You win the tournament, right? You get everything you wanted. You get the girl, you win. You disgrace the guy that's been your protagonist throughout the movie, or antagonist, sorry. And instead, they kept Roy true to who he is, because this is exactly what this asshole would do. This is what somebody who would take so much talent and end up working in as a pro in a shop that nobody ever goes to would end up doing. He would completely shoot himself in the foot. And that is why I love this movie is that this character, while there's progression for him, there is. It's very, very minimal. But at the end of the movie, he's the same asshole he was at the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, it makes the movie unique in that way. It defies the expectations. But by the end of the movie, I was kind of like, why is she with him again then?
Yeah, see, it's kind of a journey movie rather than and maybe that's more of what you were talking about with, your classic, maybe this is a story of some other thing. Because like in the story of Icarus did nothing wrong. The story was all about his dad.
Well, Icarus didn't listen to his father and did the thing that his father told him not to, and he flew too close to the sun, and he defied the better wisdom. It was sort of like that's what I was kind of thinking was going to happen when he sort of shitted on Romeo's advice of like play it safe.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was sort of like an Icarus analog in a way, but
kind of, yeah.
That didn't happen because he didn't listen to Romeo's advice and still made it through the challenge, even if he didn't make it as good as he could have otherwise.
Well,
so like, I understand that maybe there wasn't supposed to be a message to the movie, but it started so early on saying, risk versus caution, and every time that he took a risk, he effectively succeeded, but every time that he took caution, such a couple times that he did, he still succeeded. So there was never sort of a sense of like learning. Again, like you say, he didn't really advance. He didn't evolve as a character by the end of the movie. But then I'm like thinking, like, then why was I following this person along through this story? That's what I came away with kind of an empty feeling, because I'm kind of like, okay, he didn't win the thing, but he becomes a notable name. He gets famous for doing like the good thing after 17 times failing. Okay, but then why are we here?
again, for me, one, it's just such a funny movie, and I do love the movie.
Sure.
You're right in that. If you look at the U.S. Open, this did cost him. At the end of there's a small scene after this with him and Rene Russo where he's beating himself up, and we see just how bad of a psychologist she is.
Yes.
She basically tells him he did the right thing because nobody's going to remember who won the Open, but they're going to remember that shot.
I remember that shot. Like,
And you know what? That to me, that is the essence of not only the movie, but the character is that's what he would rather. He would rather have that perfect shot, even if it cost him the whole fucking game. And I appreciate that in the character, and I appreciate that they did not give this the Hollywood ending. They kind of did. I mean, he made the shot everybody's going to remember, and it was a beautiful shot. He sinks it after,
and he gets the girl,
and he gets the girl. And we see David be mean to everyone. And I don't know. I just love that they didn't go with the Hollywood. He won everything. But where you say, it didn't really cost him anything. Winning the U.S. Open comes with a giant purse. So he's going to still be living in his Winnebago.
Yeah.
Had he taken the smart route, he could have had a pro career off this. And she says at the end, you qualified high enough that you can be in the Open next year, which is fine, but we've already seen what he's going to do. He's going to blow it all.
Well, as I was watching this, and after I got through the end of it, I thought, this would have been probably a better movie, although it probably would not have been as much. You could have still had to be a comedy, but it'd probably be a bit more drama, is if it had just been a movie about the relationship between Roy and Romeo. If you had like Roy's biggest fan has been with him his whole life, and now he sees that just by dint of this old buddy coming back and wanting to use him as a tool rather than as a friend, and by that just circumstances fell into place where he had a shot at the U.S. Open. And then it was the struggle between the two of them, with him knowing how Roy is, but wanting him to be something better because he knows he can be better than he is, and back and forth. And that's why that scene where they're and I won't give the whole thing away, but when he comes back and tries to make good with Romeo after they had their little spat.
Yeah.
I really thought that was going to be sort of the start of focusing on that relationship, because that seemed like the more important one to the story than him and the girl. Like that didn't seem so much. It should have been about him and Romeo, but it doesn't. And I felt like that was a big missed opportunity.
I think for the whole psychology of it, I think there still needed to be a girl, but she should have been like secondary to the whole story. He's getting her anyway, no big deal. But it could be what throws him off. But I agree with you. The relationship between him and Romeo is far more interesting to me because, as we talked about, Romeo knows who he is. He knows what's going to happen. You can even see it when him and Romeo do make up. If you watch, Cheech Marin does an excellent job in this movie. He is not in it enough. And I'm saying that not just because I think that should have been more of the focus, but he did such a great job in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
You have this guy who knows who his friend is, but still wants so much more for him, and knows there is nothing he can do about it. Nothing, except try.
And that's kind of the reason why I thought. I mean, it's so many mixed messages. Like the name of the town is Salome. Salome, and again, the backstory and the biblical characters are very complicated. But the short version is she was a seductress. She led people astray. I thought. Did you ever see the movie Robert Redford movie The Natural?
Oh, long time ago.
Okay, so there was a lot of this that I thought was going to go the way of The Natural, and I'm not going to give away The Natural. The Natural is certainly is based on sort of mythology after a fashion. There's a lot in there that's mythological. But I thought with the name, because I knew a little bit about the backstory to Salome. That's why it made me think, oh, Rene Russo's going to come in, and she is going to be the problem. She'll at first seem like she's the new hope for him because of romance, but she'll be the thing that kind of brings him down. I thought that it was going to be something like she shows up, and as a consequence of her showing up, that's what starts the ball rolling to where he gets to the U.S. Open. And then it becomes, you've got Romeo, who's like the little angel on his shoulder saying, be your potential. And you've got her on the other side saying, be something else or whatever else. And that distracts him. Like she becomes the Yoko Ono of him, like getting through the US Open.
Mm-hmm.
And that the lesson will be, he has to go for his potential rather than be distracted by dreams and fantasies of a romance that shouldn't happen because she's already involved with. So I thought it'd be something a bit more complex than what we got, but it didn't. It couldn't quite decide like where it was going to go. Anyway, I'm overthinking it.
No, you're not. You're pretty good. The guy who wrote this, what the hell was his name? Where'd my
Shelton?
Ron Shelton. He was a minor league baseball player. And as we mentioned, he wrote Bull Durham and White Men Can't Jump. And like, if you watch White Men Can't Jump, for those of you who've never seen it, at the end, Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes, they get the game they've always wanted. The pickup game they've always wanted in basketball. They're going to play against the Duck and what's the other guy's name? I forget. In doing so, Woody Harrelson ends up losing what mattered most to him at that time. In Bull Durham, at the end, Crash sets a minor league record that nobody knows about. Crash is the best baseball player nobody's ever heard of. He wins nothing in that except for the chance to fuck Susan Sarandon. The movies that this guy writes, there's not necessarily growth in the characters. In fact, there's no growth in the characters. And I think that's why I like his movies so much, is because, one, they don't take place, with the exception of Bull Durham, which is over a baseball season. They don't take place over years or anything, which is most of the time we watch a movie and you see somebody grow from, being a shitty person into a great person. It's in a matter of days. And in these, it's the people end up exactly who they were at the beginning, and they lose things along the way that mattered to them. Even when they win, they lose things that mattered to them.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that from this writer. I don't have a lot more to say other than, maybe as a golfer, I picked up on things that you as a regular person may not.
Yeah. I mean, even if, like I say, as I thought different things were going on or going to be happening in the movie as they were set up. And it just kept diverting from things. I mean, like we were suddenly going off to a strip club. We have this getaway drive that turns really awkward. The phone call with the mentor that suddenly says, oh, now I have to. There's all these little moments where I'm like, this doesn't click, or this doesn't seem to follow. And then by the end of the movie, I have this whole other movie now in my head of what this could have been. And I'm not saying this is a bad movie per se. It's too long. There is no argument. I think it is far too long. There's so much superfluousness in some of the golf scenes and other things. The actors all do very well. I never had a problem believing any of the people as they were doing stuff. There's a lot of contradiction between what they say they are and how they act, which is part of sort of like the story. So that's fine. Like she's a psychologist. She's a shitty psychologist.
A very shitty psychologist.
She's awful. They never really hit that point home. We just kind of like watch it. Like, why is she in this job? She's going to do it. Actually, horrible.
No, what breaks that part for me is the guy walking up. You did so well for Tin Cup. Can I get you?
Right. Yeah.
If that hadn't been in there, I don't think there's a problem with how she's portrayed as a psychologist, because she tells us she jumps from job to job. Yes. We see that phone call, which she's clearly breaking down during, and she gives horrible advice throughout this movie.
Yeah, and it wasn't her that fixed him anyway. It was Cheech and then having sex apparently. So
it didn't even fix him. He's still the same asshole.
He's still the same guy. Yeah, if this movie had been about Romeo and Roy, and if it had been the struggle between dreams of greatness and the reality of I am who I am, and by the end of it there was an acceptance where Romeo sees that, he is the man he's going to be, and then he gives him the encouragement to do the thing, even though it's reckless, because this is for him,
You
this
know,
isn't for the glory. That would have been a much better movie, I think.
we kind of glossed over that, but there is kind of a moment where he does that.
Yeah.
Because you can see him, he's just all beside himself because he knows Roy is self-destructing again.
Yes.
But when he hands him that last ball, tells him it's his last ball, and tells him, hit the fucker.
Yeah. That would have had more impact. That would have had more impact if more of the movie had been focused on like Cheech's character putting those dreams of potential into Roy and Roy really trying it and them coming to some kind of equilibrium. And then that's really the point. That would have had a lot more meaning than it did. It was a funny moment. It was a funny line and it meant something there, but it could have been so much more.
And it would have made that last shot mean more, actually.
Yes, exactly.
Because it would have been, you know, not only, okay, he's right, I can do this. I've already fucked everything up, but I can do this.
Yeah, that would have been sort of like the golfer version of the Thelma and Louise moment at the end, where it's just like, let's just go for it. You know, fuck it, let's just go. We're going to be who we're going to be. So anyway, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. I'm very critical because I'm a nitpicker and I can't help myself.
But that's also what we do here.
I know that's also what we do here, and I do this even to movies that I love. Like I'm sure that by next week or next time, whenever it is, hopefully next week, when we do Darkman, I will probably be critical of several things that I've forgotten since the last time I watched that movie. So it's for the love of the craft, and also for, you know, the cynicism in me is built on hope. When I start a movie, I'm like, I hope this is going to be great, and when it isn't quite great, I figure out what would have made it better for me. So there you go.
I love this. I absolutely love this movie. I've watched it 100 times easily. And I mean that sincerely. There are times when I couldn't sleep, like when I'm sore, I will lay there and I'll watch a movie. And if I haven't fallen asleep by the end, I'll start it over. I absolutely love this movie. But talking to you about it, I've told people you don't have to be a golfer to watch this movie, but you've made me realize there's parts of it you're going to enjoy more if you are.
Yes.
And it's not the stuff that, like, when they fly over the green, because as a golfer, you're like, that's porn to us. But like the part where he gets the where he starts just hitting the ball sideways. If you haven't been there, I can see how easily you'd be like, this makes no sense. That's too convenient. So they should have done a little bit better job on explaining that. Or tell people at the very beginning, if you're not a golfer, there's parts of this you're not going to know. Because as Scribe was describing his problem with that, I'm like, you know what? I can absolutely see that as somebody who's never gone through it. But as somebody who has, that part to me made perfect sense watching it. I was like, I never questioned it once until you brought it up. So
I'm a ruiner. What can I tell you?
You didn't ruin it. You pointed out that there's things that I had. And again, guys, that's what we do this. I still think you should watch this movie. It's a fucking great movie.
Sure.
But there may be parts of it that you're not quite going to understand. And I don't mean you're not going to understand them as what's happening. You're not going to understand the underlying parts of it if you haven't played golf before. Just because golf will fuck up your head and fuck up your whole week until you get that shot right the next time you go out. That is God's honest truth. But I don't have anything more to say other than I think you should watch it. It's great. You can fast forward through most of the scenes you see people walking around a golf course, though.
Yeah, it's true.
Anything you want to add?
Nope. I think I've beaten this horse as far to death that it's under the ground 3 times.
Next time, hopefully next week on Scribe's channel. It will be on Scribe's channel no matter what, but hopefully next week we will be doing Darkman, which this is going to be the opposite. Scribe likes the movie. I've never seen it. So tune in for that. Keep an eye on Lords of the Night and Twitter, and we'll let you know for sure when that's happening. Until then, guys, thank you so much for coming by and hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.